He judged once by the flood. He preserved that record. Now, I need to camp out on this thought a little bit. And my colleagues helped me a little bit this morning to understand a better way to explain it. And I'm going to say a word maybe you've heard of. You probably haven't. It's apoptosis or apoptosis. It is called programmed cell death. Did you know that after you die, you breathe your last, your heart stops pumping, you're dead. Your cells are still working. And they're working to do what? Deconstruct themselves. It's automatic. It's automatic. That cells, once they're dead, they begin this programmed cell death, and they deconstruct themselves until they go into the basic elements that then these critters, insects, worms, microbes can go in and take advantage of. So that is happening all the time, but it's not happening in dinosaur soft tissues. You're going to see some pictures of structures today that you're not going to believe. They're being preserved. And the whole scientific world is on a race to find out what is preserving these tissues. It's not a what, it's a who. It's a who. That's why this message is so needed for our world. So we're trying to give you the tools that you can have so that people will survive this judgment by fire. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot about the Sermon on the Mount. I could, but what it shows is our relationship between ourselves and our judge, who is Father, arbiter, sustainer, supplier, loving Father to those of us who know him. And so the rules for how to do well in that environment are in the Sermon on the Mount. So I would encourage you. People do need to surrender. Sorry, I did some changing and it's off the screen a little bit. People do need to surrender. We all need to surrender to God if we're going to make it. Finally, and I think this is an important point that you scholars, you Bible scholars, can look into, Edenic law. Edenic law. Dinosaur soft tissue validates the laws that God implemented in Eden. Do not eat. That was a law. We broke that law. Do not eat from this tree. Doesn't matter what tree. Probably wasn't an apple. Doesn't matter. What matters is we disobeyed that Edenic law. That has never been rescinded. God is still judge. He's day judge by job. But he's also our Father, our arbiter. Doesn't he arbitrate for us and help us? Of course he does. All right. We think that distree.org is the best way to reach people for free. Why? Well, we're dedicated to the science, which you're going to see, and the publishing and presenting. We go into these scientific meetings and we present. I've had people jump out of a chair in front of me, a PhD, and say to me, I have to collaborate with you because these cells look alive. Of course, somebody got to her and told her he's a creationist, and then she wouldn't talk to me after that, right? But we're dedicated to the science because the science moves people's hearts and minds, right? Everyone is a volunteer, as I mentioned. Everything's always free. 100% goes to the mission. And you know what? Everybody in the world knows what a dinosaur is. Have you realized that? God already did the work for us. Everybody knows what a dinosaur is, and they know that it's millions and millions of years old. Am I right? Yeah. Everybody knows that. Why? They've been indoctrinated. And everybody knows what soft tissue is. You put those two things together, and you've got a powerful message. I can get to Eden in 30 seconds. Let me give you an example. I'm in a supermarket checkout line, and the clerk says, how are you today? And I say, I'm great. I went on a dinosaur dig. And I say it loud. I went on a dinosaur dig. Suddenly, everybody in the line is looking at me. Why? Everybody wants to go on a dinosaur dig, right? So they're interested. And I tell the clerk, we went to Montana. We found a 48-inch long Triceratops horn, and I do this. I'm putting a mind picture in their mind. 48-inch long Triceratops horn, and it was full of soft tissue. And I do this. And people go, what? Wait, what? And now I have a conversation with 15 people, and I can say, yeah, if the dinosaur tissue is soft, what does it mean? They're not old. We know they're not old. They can't be old. Why? What's preserving the tissue? We still can't find a mechanism. If they're young, then the deposits that they are in are young. We find these deposits all over the earth, therefore, sounds like a global flood. Suddenly, Genesis becomes a believable book of actual history, and you can talk about Eden, Adam and Eve, sin, the fall, our need for Christ, and his substitutionary death for us. In 30 seconds, I can preach the gospel. So we want you guys to learn how to do this because it really works. All right, let's talk science. So I mentioned long bones, and most of the scientists that started looking for dinosaur soft tissue were looking in femurs and humerus bones and such because they're encapsulated. The dinosaur bones have a very thick layer of compact bone around the outside of the bone. It's like a little sarcophagus. It's a time capsule, really, with the elements inside. But we were not able to find a long bone. So on the fourth day of the dig, when we had to drive back to Los Angeles, we finally found this horn, 48 inches long, and it took us 8 hours to get it out of the ground. But bone, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, you can see this online. Bone makes these concentric circles. It's actually the cells, the little osteocytes that make this bone. The first thing they do is they make a carpet of collagen. You know what collagen is, right? Those of us that are aging, we need more collagen, don't we? It decays over time, right? But it's a very stable molecule. And so they make this carpet, and they all lay down on the carpet like soldiers at parade, and then they cover themselves in bone mineral. They actually bury themselves deep inside the bone. But before they do that, they make little tunnels to all the other cells in all directions, and they send a little, it's called a thread foot, a filopodia. These little structures, they reach out, they go through the bone, through tunnels, and they touch every other cell in the bone. Every single cell in your bone is talking to every other bone, every other cell in your bone. Why? Because they monitor you as you run or carry, right? They're monitoring your bone. These little things are measuring the stress on your bones and accounting for fractures, and they're repairing them. In fact, your entire skeleton is replaced every 12 to 15 years. Did you know that? Your entire skeleton is rebuilt by these little cells. Okay? So the osteocytes, those are important, and we found tons of those. And you're going to see some tonight. But the other structures that I think are more important are the ones that are traveling through the bone. The vessels that deliver the blood, the veins which carry it back to the heart, and nerves. You see this yellow line in here? These are the arteries and veins and nerves that are surrounded by these cells in the bone.